Hello everybody, welcome back to Firefield Junction and welcome to part 2 of the review of the brand new Hornby Midland Pullman HST pack. Now, so in the last video we took a look at the model in detail, and we also gave the model a quick test, see what the performance was like on analog, and then we obviously ended the video there because I decided to do this review in 2 parts, because I thought it would end up being really long if I did it in one part, because I think the bulk of this video, well, at least on this of this part and the second part, is going to be probably the majority of it is going to be mainly chipping the model and just seeing what all of the functions are like, and I suppose demonstrating all of the functions as well. Now a quick disclaimer: I have already chipped the model. Well, I have and I haven't. The dummy unit has already been chipped and it's off to one side at the moment. The motor unit I also tested it on DCC just to see what it was like. And I did make a few discoveries, one of them not being very good, which I'll talk about later. But I basically just wanted to test everything to make sure everything was okay and see if there were any problems. And then when we actually came to the video, I could basically explain a bit more, and I probably had a bit more knowledge as well. But anyway, the motor unit is what's in front of us. All of the body screws are already out. It's just the 4 screws. It's just like the old model, 4 screws holding the body on. And then it's just the usual, lift the back of the body up slightly, slide it forwards. It's a little bit tight on this one, but if you give it a bit of leverage, it does come forward. There we are. Then the body comes off nicely, and then it's just wires at the front. I thought there would be wires around the center as well, but it's just the usual wires around the front. There's 5 wires for the lights this time, not the usual 3 that we're used to on the old models. It is 5 this time, and I'm sure you can guess why that is. But we'll talk about that later. But as we can see, this is what the model is like inside. And now before we carry on, I'll quickly flip the camera around for you, and then we can take a closer look at the mechanism and the new circuitry inside. And then from there we can go on and put a decoder in. So I'll quickly flip the camera around for you, and then we can carry on. Okay, so here we are. So as we can see, we're now looking at it from another angle, but hopefully you can see a bit better now. So this is the new circuitry inside the new HSTs. So starting at the back, we've got the factory fitted speakers. So there is a pair of Sugar Cube speakers underneath here, and those are already wired to the circuit board. I believe it's underneath because there are some markings there just next to my finger. You can see the SPK just there for speaker, but I think they're all soldered in underneath, because as we can see, there's nothing on top. So I presume that the speaker wires are soldered in underneath there. We can see then we've got the fans, and obviously they are motorized. We can see the motor just there. We've got the new 21-pin decoder socket. That's the tool that you use to control the speed of the fans. It does work, but in this particular one, it doesn't seem to be very good, and it did cause a small issue, which again I'll talk about later. And then at the front, we've still got the usual plug and play with the lights. However, again, like I mentioned a minute ago, we have now got 5 wires there instead of the 3. Because we have got nighttime running lights. I can confirm there are nighttime running lights in this model. But before we continue, obviously you do need a 21-pin decoder with these, which is obviously glaringly obvious. But if you want to utilize all of the functions in this model, which includes obviously all of the lighting functions and the fans, you do need a 6-function decoder in these models. Obviously you can use regular 2 or 4 function decoders, but if you do, you won't be able to use the fans. You definitely won't be able to use the nighttime running lights. So you'll basically only get pretty much the basic functions, which are, well, it's just the regular running lights, and that's all you'll get. But if you want to utilize all of the functions, you do need a 6-function decoder. If you don't, obviously, again, like I just said, you won't be able to use everything. So make sure that the decoder you're fitting does have 6 functions to ensure that you will be able to use all of the functions for the model. Yeah, I thought I'd just mention that, because that is quite important if you do want to utilize everything. But obviously I don't want people chipping their HSTs, then wondering why either their nighttime lights aren't working or why the fans aren't working, things like that. But the decoder that we're going to be fitting is just here. It's a dapol one. This is 21-pin. Well, obviously it is 21-pin. It is 6-function, so we will be able to use all of the functions in here. The decoder in the dummy is also 6-function. It's a gauge master one. So both power cars, we can use all of the functions on both power cars. So we'll get to the full package really. But anyway, before we continue, I'll quickly put the decoder in, then I will quickly explain what functions will do what and what function keys that each thing is allocated to, and I'll demonstrate them as well. Then I will talk about the slight issue that I had when I was testing it was an issue with the fans actually. I'll talk about that in a minute, but I'll quickly put the decoder in and then we can continue from there. Okay, so here we are. So as you can see, the decoder's now been fitted. I've put the model onto the track. I've also given the decoder its address so that both power cars are now the same number now. And I haven't put the body shell back on yet, just so I can demonstrate all of the functions and you'll be able to see the fans a bit easier as well. Now, very quickly, before I do demonstrate them, I think I will talk about the issue that I had with the fans now quickly. Now, the fans, whilst they do work, and they do work quite well, on the dummy units they work really well, they work perfectly. On this particular unit, I'm not sure what it is, but the fans on this unit, they do seem to jam up a bit. They do not spin very fast. If I just show you, if I just activate function 3, which is what the fans are on, you can see there the fans don't work, they don't spin very fast. Now I'm pretty sure the resistor there, because I have fiddled about with this bit, but I'm pretty sure it is on the same setting as the dummy unit is, and the fans on the dummy unit spin much faster than they do on the motor unit. So I think there might be something slightly wrong with the fan mechanism in this model. Whether there's something wrong with the motor or it's just something wrong with the actual gearing between the motor and the fans, I'm not sure. But the fan mechanism in this model, in this particular power car, it's not 100% right. There's something not quite right with it. Now you may be thinking, well, why don't you just turn up the speed using the resistor? Well, that's what I did. The fans span a little bit faster, but that made the decoder smoke. And that's not good. If I had left it for too long, I would have ended up blowing the decoder. So there's something definitely not right here. When turning the fan speed up to the maximum, so I obviously wanted to try it to see if it made a difference. It did make them spin a bit faster, but the mechanism was still jamming up. And because because the motor is trying to turn the mechanism faster, but something's not allowing it to, obviously it's going to be drawing more power, because a stalled motor does draw quite a lot of power, and the decoder does not like that, and it did nearly blow the decoder. So I'm definitely not going to be turning the fan speed up. I'm just going to leave the fans as they are. I'm not really going to use them anyway, but it's just nice to have the option there if I do want to use them. But I thought I'd just warn you about that. If you are going to turn up the fan speed in your new HST, just be wary how free the fan mechanism is, because if it moves as slow as the one in this power car, I'd recommend leaving it as it is and leaving it at the lowest setting, because if you do turn it up and the fans still don't want to move very fast, you could end up blowing the decoder, and that's obviously not very good. But I suppose it's not an absolutely major thing. As long as you leave the fans the way they are, then they should be fine. But it's still not very good. We shouldn't be having any issues like this, especially for how expensive these power cars are. That's not very good. So that's definitely going to be a markdown for quality there, because I should not be having an issue like this. But as long as I leave everything the way it is, it does seem to be fine. But I'm probably not going to be using the fans very much, which personally for me is fine. But for someone out there who might want to use these fans quite a lot, there's a chance it could cause problems if their HST, if the fans in theirs do perform the same way as these ones. But anyway, with that aside, the fans do work, and they work okay. At least on this power car they work okay. On the dummy, they work fine, they spin quite nicely. But anyway, with that aside, I'll demonstrate some of the lighting functions. Now, function 0 is just the typical running lights. If I just put those on, we can see we've got the tail lights there. If I go the other direction, we can see there we've got the headlights there. Now the top headlight is on function 1. If I just put that on, we can see there. Why they've wired it up separately, I'm not too sure. I suppose it's nice, maybe if you're shunting or something, you don't have to have the top headlight on. I'm not sure if the real thing, the top headlight is controlled separately. It might be, it might not be. But I suppose it's kind of nice to have the option there, because you might want to do something where you don't want the top headlight on, or vice versa. But it's a little bit strange, I think. I'm pretty sure maybe where Hornby have retooled this, maybe the cab lights are now separate. This particular model does not have cab lights. I'm presuming it doesn't have the cab lights because it's got the top headlights. So I'm guessing on other new Hornby HST releases, such as the Castle power cars, the new Fag Packet power cars, the East Coast ones, the Jubilee ones, all of those that don't have top headlights, I'm guessing those will have cab lights fitted, and those cab lights can be controlled via function 1. But it's a little bit strange that on this model they've kept the tooling the same, and the cab light is separate to the rest of the lights. It's a bit strange, but I suppose it's nothing too major. Now carrying on, function 2 does the nighttime running light. So if we do that, function 2 on, you can see the high intensity headlight swaps over, and again, obviously if you change direction as normal, you will still get the normal lights, whatever you've got them set to, going on there. So that's not too bad. So plenty of functionality with the lighting. The fans, 50-50, but as it is, it's okay, it's not too bad. Obviously it's not 100%, especially with those fans, but as it is, it's not too bad. It still runs well, it looks good, it's nice to have the functionality of the lights. Overall, it's not too bad. But the next thing we need to do is we need to pop the body back on both power cars, and then we can get them running. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to couple them up to the Raycov Cross Country Mark IIIs that I've got here on the outside line. Seeing as they're there and they haven't been ran much, they've done 1 or 2 laps of the layout so far. Since they're there and they're ready to go, I might as well run the power cars with those. At least then we get a rough sense of, I suppose, of what the Pullmans will be like with some coaches. But it'll be better than nothing, better than running them with nothing, I suppose. So let's get the body shafts back on, get them coupled up, and we'll see what they're like. Okay, so here we are. Now the dummy unit's already on the track, coupled up to the coaches. So now we just need to put the motor unit on. Should be fairly easy to do. There we are. Now if we just couple her up. There we are. She's ready to go. Now I know obviously this isn't prototypical, but I thought we might as well couple the power cars up to some coaches just to get a rough idea of what they're going to be like. And I suppose it'll look a bit better as well, rather than running back to back. And now when the coaches do come out, I will do like a quick maybe bonus video with a small running session with the model. By then it may even have sound as well, you never know. But for the moment, this should do perfectly fine. Now if we just put the lights on, there we are. Then we need to put the top headlight on as well. Now, do we run in day mode or night mode? You know what, I think because we're so used to seeing a HST running in daytime mode and 00 gauge, for this, let's run in nighttime mode. It'd be a bit different, I suppose. So if we just get her to move forward. Now actually quickly, before we do get her running, I will just show you actually at the speed of the fans in the dummy unit. If I just bring her forward slightly, so you can see there the fans again in the motor unit. So if I just put those on again, you can see there how slow they spin in that unit. But if I just bring the dummy units around for you, now I'm hoping these Mark IIIs will be okay. Just noticed one of the couplings seems to be a bit jammed up. There we go. So these couplings for these coaches, they're not the type that they should be with, but I'm sure they'll be fine. We'll just carry on, just bring the dummy units around again. There we are. And if I just put the fans on the dummy unit, you can see how much faster these spin. There we are. Now those are at the same setting as the ones in the motor unit. So this is how fast they should be spinning in the motor unit, but they're not. So something definitely is not right with the fans in the motor unit. Again, I don't know what it is. I'm not going to bother investigating it for now, because also I don't want to go damaging the model and stripping it apart when it's brand new. But I can deal without the fans for now. I'm not really going to use them that much, so we'll be fine. But anyway, let's get her running and see what she's like. Oh. There we are. But I think you'll agree that the performance from this model is absolutely fantastic. She's running really well, she's running really smoothly, she's not struggling. unlike the fans in the motor unit, she's running very well. She's working perfectly. But overall, if you want this pack, I recommend you get it. It does look fantastic. Don't pay the RRP because it's a rip-off. I do recommend trying getting it as cheap as you can. Overall, she's great. Definitely not 100%. There are a few little niggles here and there. But compared to the old tooling HST from Hornby, it's definitely an improvement. I don't think it's as good of an improvement as it should be. Definitely not. But as it is, it's not too bad. Definitely not bad at all. If you want one, get one. That's all I can say. Hello everybody, quickly before we finish the review, I thought I would quickly mention it's now been a little bit later since you last saw the model running with the coaches, but I decided I didn't want to leave the review there. I thought I am going to delve in, I'm going to see why these fans in the motor unit would not move, because as you could see in the previous clips when we were testing the functions, you may remember that the fans in the motor unit, they would barely move, they would spin really slowly. And even when I came up today, after the model had been resting all night, when I came to test them then, they just would not move. They were completely seized. So I decided I'm going to open up the fan mechanism and I'm going to see what is stopping the fans from spinning. And on investigation, I found the problem, and I highly recommend that you check your HSTs for this. I'm sure, I have a feeling at some point, every single HST will probably likely be affected by this at some point, but the problem is the lubricant that Hornby have used in these. The lubricants that Hornby have used to lubricate these models, I'm pretty sure it'll probably be the same for the fan mechanism and the actual drive mechanism as well. The lubricants that Hornby have used, it is really sticky, it's really viscous. The best way I can describe it, it's almost like earwax, it's like that, it's really sticky. That is what is stopping the fans, or was stopping the fans from moving. I have since dismantled these fans, cleaned out all of the old lubricant and re-lubricated it, just using, if I can find it, it's just here, just using one of these oil pens. I highly recommend you use these if you can when you're servicing your models. It's really easy to put oil wherever you need it to be. And by doing that, by taking out the old lubricant and putting in some of my own, general sort of, well, it's just general sort of oil really for your models. By doing that, re-lubricating it with some proper lubricant, these fans are now working perfectly. If I just show you, I know they're spinning a little bit slowly now, but they will, as you can see, they do speed up. Once re-lubricated, as you can see, these fans are now working as they should be. They're working at a nice constant speed, and I can even now, if I wanted to, if I use the tool on the circuit board, I can now even increase the speed of them as intended by Hornby, as you can see there. And that is what should happen, obviously, when you get one of these models. But obviously with this one, when this came with the old lubricant, it just wasn't having it. These fans would not move. But as you can see now, once serviced and re-lubricated with some lubricant that actually does lubricate the mechanism instead of stopping it from working, the fans now do work properly. So I thought I'd just show you that the problem, luckily it's not as serious as I thought it was, as I thought it would be. But if you do have a HST that has fans and they're really struggling to move, obviously you can either send them all back to Hornby if you want to, or if you're confident enough, then you can just unscrew the fan mechanisms. It's just 2 screws that hold this in, unclip the fans, and you can get access to the mechanism inside, clean out all of the old lubricant, and then apply your own. But yeah, I should not have had to do this really. The RRP of these new models, it's getting quite ridiculous now, and I've had to already go in and fix a part of the model because something's not right with it. Not good enough. But anyway, we can finally move on and let's get some ratings for the model. And now finally, let's have some ratings for the brand new Hornby Midland Pullman HST pack. So first of all, the detail. Overall, the detail is not too bad, as is usual with most Hornby main range locos, and well, I suppose locomotive packs as well. Overall, the detail is not too bad. I've given it 9 out of 10, because overall it's not too bad. Lots of various details all over the place. The underframe detail is very, very good. On the roof again, not too bad either. Overall, the detail has been done very well. The livery, for the most part, is applied really well. Again, the amount of separately fitted parts is really good. You've got the extra grills on the roof, as you'd expect on a model like this, separately fitted handrails, a wealth of detail on the underframe. We've even got all of the electrical socket detail at the back of the power cars, I'm pretty sure that detail was missing on some of the older releases. So to see it on these new releases is very, very good. And yeah, overall, I can't fault the detail. Overall, it's not too bad. The reason I haven't given it 10 out of 10 is it doesn't have the opening doors. Now, I know these opening doors, as I've mentioned quite a few times, they are a pointless feature because they don't really do anything. But with a model with a price like this, you would expect detail features like that, because they also look better compared to molded doors that are just molded to the body. I think it does look better, so that's why I can't give this model 10 out of 10. But apart from that, overall the detail is really, really good. The performance is also exceptional with this model, and to us, you can't really go wrong with Hornby models in terms of performance. Most of the time, the vast majority of the time, they perform really, really well, and that's mainly because of the mechanisms as well. These models usually, mostly, most of the time, always do have really good high quality mechanisms. You have really good quality motors, a really nicely built gear train, pickups on all of the wheels. Overall, it's not too bad, it's just exceptional really. I don't think I've ever had one of these Hornby HSTs, and I do have quite a few of them. I don't think I've ever had any of them, and being that to any of my premium Hornby locos, I don't think I've ever had any major running issues with them. They've always performed really well, always nice and smooth, always nice and strong. Overall, I can't complain about the performance. The quality, however, as is quite usual with a lot of Hornby releases, the quality has not been delivered here, but usually with a model like this, with this sort of price tag, you would expect no issues at all. Unfortunately, as is common with Hornby, we have still got some quality issues here. The minor ones, I would say, is just some tiny little imperfections in the decoration. One of them being the cant rail stripe. I've only noticed it on the motor unit. The cant rail stripe was not painted on as well as I'd expect it to be. It was a little bit messy in places. It was nothing major, but it was noticeable when you looked close up. Also, in terms of paintwork, is the fans. The fans have not been painted that well, and indeed, since I've opened the model up, some of the paint has come off one of the fans on the motor unit, so now one of the blades is completely red, when obviously it should be silver. So with an issue like that, you really shouldn't be having issues like that. No matter how minor they are, it's just not acceptable. But the major issue, as I'm sure you're probably thinking, is the fans. The fans, whilst they do work, unfortunately they did not work as well as they should have done on this model. I know Hornby have only recently started doing these operating fans, so they probably aren't quite used to doing mechanisms for these. However, the mechanism with this of the fans in this model was not the issue. Obviously, the issue here with the fans that was stopping them from working was the lubricant that Hornby had used. The lubricant was terrible. It just really wasn't up to the job. Instead of lubricating the mechanism, it was causing it to seize up because the lubricant was so sticky and viscous. It just wasn't doing what it should have done. So you really can't be having issues like that. So Hornby should be using a decent quality lubricant that they know will work. I know I have some of my other models from Hornby probably do use this lubricant, but in this case, this lubricant is not up to the job. It's just causing the motor and the mechanism for the fans to seize up. It's just really not up to the job. You should not be seeing issues like that. It's just not acceptable. I did manage to fix it, as you saw just now at the end. I was able to dismantle the fan mechanism, which is fairly simple to do. I cleaned out the old lubricant, applied my own, and after that the fans worked as well as they should have done from out of the box. But unfortunately, out of the box they do not work properly, and because of that I can't give this model a really high score on quality. But apart from that, generally the quality was okay. The model was put together really well. Overall, there wasn't any major issues in terms of the decoration. The vast majority of the paint had been applied very well. There was no paint bleed anywhere. All of the parts were fitted straight. There was no glue marks anywhere. Overall, in terms of build quality and decoration, overall not too bad. But obviously in terms of those fans and the tiny little mishap with the decoration, the quality is not spot on. The value for money then, this was a fairly difficult score to figure out, but I've given it 10 out of 10. Now the reason for this is, for a start, overall obviously this model is much better than the older HSTs from Hornby. Obviously you do have more features. You've got the operating fans, you've got a more up-to-date DCC socket. Instead of 8-pin, you've got the 21-pin. You've also got the nighttime ring lights, which was missing on the older releases, and you have also got some more detail that was missing on those releases as well. So you are definitely getting more for your money. However, this particular pack does cost a little bit more than all of the other new releases. Why that is, I'm not too sure. There's nothing really that special about it. It's definitely not because of the top headlights, because the Rail Adventure power cars have that as well, and they've got the same price tag as all of the other power cars. Plus those power cars have buffer beam detail as well, which would probably increase the cost slightly. So why these cost more than all of the others, I don't know. They really shouldn't do. The RRP is an absolute rip-off. You just don't want to pay it. It's just ridiculous. I managed to pay just under £340 for these, and even at that price, especially with the quality issues that I've had, the value for money is just not being met. Whilst again it's not too bad, it's okay, it's still not very good. If the quality was better, then the value for money would probably be better. But with the prices that Hornby are charging, the RRP, it's just not good enough. It should be lower. Even the retailer price should be lower as well, and obviously if the RRP was lower, then the retailer price would be lower. Overall, the value for money, it's definitely better than the old HSTs, but as it is, it's still not good enough. The price should be lower. So that's an overall score of 8 out of 10. Overall, not a bad score. It is good, but the quality should be higher and the value for money should be better because the price should be lower. But overall, taking all things into consideration, it's not a bad model. It looks fantastic when it's running, and if you want to get one, I recommend you do.